Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today on Face Off, I am asking the question, what is Pertwee's best Dalek story? Or what do you think is your favorite Pertwee Dalek story? So, the Third Doctor Dalek stories. We have three. Which one do you like the best? Me? It depends. My favorite is, of course, Day of the Daleks, the special edition with the upgraded effects. That's an easy win for me. Now, if I wasn't allowed to use updated effects, which Planet also has, but Planet's updated effects aren't that great. If I had to strictly go by the original versions, it'd be almost a tie between Day and Death, because I think Day has a better story, the actual story, on paper, the script and the story. I love Day's story. I like Death's story, but I really like Day's story. But I feel like Death to the Daleks is executed better. I think it's realized better on the screen than Day. Day really did need those updated effects to help match the execution of the story to the actual story. Whereas I think Death is executed pretty well. I like Death to the Daleks. I love the unique Dalek design with like the gray or the black and silver Daleks. I like that design. I love that, much like some of the Whittaker stories, the Daleks are clever and manipulative. In this one, they do go along the humans until they betray the humans. I love how they improvise, you know, the little machine gun projectile weapons. I love the fact they have the little TARDIS they practice it on. The little TARDIS they target practice. The target practice TARDIS. I love that. I don't know why, but I always love that. Now, the Dalek voices in Death to the Daleks aren't the best. I know it's Michael Wisher, but they're not the best. They're okay. They do feel a little frenzied at some point, like, total extermination, fire, fire, fire. But then again, considering what the original Dalek voices in Day of the Daleks were like, they were terrible. They were awful. Probably the worst Dalek voices in the original version of Day of the Daleks. They're awful. But again, if we bring updated effects into this, Day of the Daleks wins for me. I love the way it's executed. I love the new Dalek voices by Nicholas Briggs. Although he did record it on analog equipment to kind of give it that classic Who sound. That's pretty cool. That's definitely my favorite. I really think it makes the story live up to its potential, or the execution of the story live up to the story, and I like that one the best. Let's see what you guys have to say. Now, with 50% of the vote, half of the vote, Day of the Daleks did win, but not far behind it, with 39% of the vote was Planet of the Daleks, which is easily my least favorite, original effects or updated effects. And with only 12%, a very disappointing 12%, is Death to the Daleks. It's odd for me because I don't really care for Planet of the Daleks much. It's okay. I don't dislike it. It's perfectly watchable. I don't really get into it though, and it's probably the one story I prefer original effects for the most part. Some of the original effects I prefer, some of the updated effects I prefer. It depends on which effect. But for the most part, I watch it with the original effects. But I would have liked to have seen Death to the Daleks with a higher percentage, with only 12%. That's a little disappointing, because I really enjoyed Death to the Daleks. Now let's see what y'all had to say about it here. Jeremy Duncan says, Day of the Daleks has the best twist. Planet of the Daleks has the best quote. I know the one you're talking about. That is a great quote. And Death to the Daleks has the best new single straight from Exelon. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. Kenneth Raymond Moore says, Day of the Daleks is obviously the best, especially the special edition, if you're going off production and story quality. If you're going off just pure magical nostalgia, then it's going to always be Death to the Daleks for me. Not sure if this is the first Dalek story I ever saw, but it's definitely the first one that ever had a major impact on me. Excuse me. The Exelon City was a real mysterious and magical thing when I was 9 years old. And I agree, nostalgia does play a lot into how we see, you know, especially stuff from Classic Who, or, I mean, there's people now who are young enough that they grew up with modern Who, and it's nostalgic for them. Simon Mincher says, Day of the Daleks stands out, and particularly the special edition with enhanced effects. I like the introduction of the new monsters, the Ogrons, as henchmen for the Daleks, and some of the scenes with the unit are particularly good. Brilliant story idea from the Letts and Dicks parts, of which were later copied by the Terminator movie. and X-Men Days of Futures Past. Lee Carroll says, considering Day wasn't meant to be a Dalek story, it's still the better story. Planet is a retread of the first Dalek story, and Death is just a fun romp. Though all of the stuff in the city is the most interesting bit. Pixel Johnson says, I have to go with Death of the Daleks, or Death to the Daleks. On this one, which admittedly might be my nostalgia speaking since it was the Pertwee story I got on DVD, and one of the first Doctor Who DVDs I got in general. Again, nostalgia plays a huge part in it. But Day also definitely deserves it too. Though episode 4 is its downfall, because I felt it went by in 10 minutes, not 25. I never liked the Daleks anyway in that story, which I think can be forgiven because they were thrown into the season 9 opener when they were originally planned for the season 8 finale. I thought it was the season 9 finale, but whichever. Which is not the case for Death to the Daleks. As while its main cast aside from Bella, the Dr. Sarah, and the Daleks are a bit dull, I can get by them as they do hold up the story well enough. It's also not lying that the title either, whilst also having interesting ideas and an iconic cliffhanger, if for odd reasons. But yeah, Death to the Daleks for me is the best Pertwee Dalek story. TARDIS Spider says, with the updated special effects, this goes from very good to great. Like this more than Genesis of the Daleks. Death to second? I'm assuming he means... okay, so Day is his favorite, Death to the Daleks is second. Okay. Joshua says, Day of the Daleks, but I got a soft spot for Death as well, simply for the floor cliffhanger and, of course, exploding Daleks. John Taylor says, I love Planet of the Daleks because it's a 6-parter and reintroduces the Thals from the William Hartnell era. I do love the fact that Planet of the Daleks brings the Thals back. I do wish the Thals would come back. The modern show seems to have forgotten about them. I would like to see them come back in the show. Colin Coney, who is also one of my patrons, says, I voted for Death to the Daleks. I like Day, despite the suspiciously 1970s haircuts and mustaches on the gorillas. I love Planet, despite it being overly long and the purple psychedelic fur coats. But I think Death is the bleakest and tightest story. Also, the Daleks are shown to be resourceful and deceitful, just how they should be. Exactly. One of the reasons I like Death a lot, too. Death to the Daleks. Fly Attractor, who, of course, has been one of my subscribers who has sent me many, many goodies. A lot of my novels I've gotten to read. Says, I'm going to vote for Day. Probably mostly due to the movie in my head version, aka the Target book nostalgia, but it's basically Doctor Who does the Terminator with Daleks before the Terminator. So yeah, I like it. LOZ Hallett 1 says, Day of the Daleks has the best story, but not the best production, even the enhanced version. Planet of the Daleks is the whole package, entertaining from beginning to end. Shamrock Particle says, even without the special edition, Day of the Daleks is the strongest. Planet of the Daleks is a montage of greatest scenes from previous Dalek stories, and the oh-so-big shocker of 10,000 Daleks wasn't that strong on initial watch either. Death to the Daleks has some neat ideas, but feels less than the sum of its parts. The infamous cliffhanger of, oh look, a weird checkered board, and there's no reason as to why we should be trembling in fear and wetting our pants for a whole week on this doesn't help. Sea Hill Bruiser Music says, I had to choose Death to the Daleks because I remember watching it as a wee kid in the 70s and being absolutely terrified by it. Henry Andrews says, I like them all, but if I had to choose Planet of the Daleks, it has the Return of the Thals. JLB Who, is also one of my patrons, says, Day of the Daleks, it's the most fun. The other two, I always get them mixed up. Bananas Are Good, says Planet. I know it's just a rehash of the original, but it was the 10th anniversary, I suppose. Even though I love Death to the Daleks Dark Atmosphere, I had Planet on VHS. I'm in a special Dalek 10, so I watched it a lot. Courage isn't just a matter of not being frightened, you know. It's about doing something. I don't think you got the quote quite right. But I get the quote right. It's about doing something knowing... I don't think you got the quote right. Courage isn't just a matter of being frightened, you know. It's being afraid and doing what you have to do anyway. That is my favorite John Pertwee quote, though. Paul Bailey says, gotta be Planet of the Daleks. Somewhere on this planet, there's 10,000 Daleks. Brilliant cliffhanger. Jacob Reed says Day of the Daleks, but I might be biased because I love Unit. Ryan Carrick says, I'm in the minority here. I like Planet, but think it should have been at least been a 5-part. It's very similar to a lot of other Dalek episodes, maybe even 4. I like Day, but think it's pretty overrated. I love Death to the Daleks. It's a nice story for 3 and Sarah Jane. Yeah, stop coughing today. Nikayako says Day of the Daleks Special Edition. And Reuptaking TV says Day is the best, followed by Death, then Planet. I also prefer the original version of Day of the Daleks. Interesting. Cody W1, who's also a fellow YouTuber, says Day by a long way. Lord Gamermon says, honestly, all of them are not very good, but Death to the Daleks was the least bad. Interesting take. Although he's a big fan of Frontier, he says the most disappointing thing about Planet is that it follows Frontier in space, which is one of the best stories of the era. And Bobby Frackle says, another easy one, Day every time. All of the Nation stories are weak after the Dalek invasion of Earth. Planet is the best one since that's the one. Since that one, but it's not massively original, a shopping list of all of Nation's old ideas, which is something Terry Nation did a lot. He tended to just kind of reuse the same ideas. So that's what we have. Day of the Daleks with 50% of the vote. Planet of the Daleks with 39% of the vote. And Death to the Daleks with a massively underrated 12% of the vote out of 135 votes. So if you didn't get to vote in this poll, I'd like to know which one of those is your favorite Pertwee story. So comment down below and let me know. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another YouTube video. I also have a Patreon, and that does help me pay the bills. So if you would like to contribute to that, if there's any of the tiers that interest you, there's a link in the description below. Check that out. I'd appreciate just if you took a quick minute to look over it. Everyone who joins at any tier level gets a free video request. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. I also have a link to my Amazon wishlist and my Amazon UK wishlist as well. I want to give a shout out to Stephen Collins. Stephen Collins. I always mix their name up if I say Stephen's name first. I always get Colin's name off. Colin Coney and Stephen Crane. I appreciate their continued support as I do the support of all of my patrons. And most importantly, thank you for watching.